Hi, it's Jim. This is a long-form video for Chapter 16. That is organizational culture. It's competency 4 in organizational behavior and leadership. This is one of the four critical chapters in the course that make up a vast, disproportionate share of the examination. Those are chapters 9, 10, 12, and 16. Uh, I've been remaking these long form videos, and you may not even be aware of that because you've only seen the remade versions. It's I watched the what is now to you the previous version of the organizational culture long form yesterday, and I as I made it, I dated it because it was the week going into Super Bowl 47, which is the very beginning of February in 2013. And why I reference that is at the time I'm doing this recording, that's over 2.5 years ago. And I'd like you to think back to where you were 2.5 years ago, where you were, at the beginning of 2013, and think about sort of the steps that it took for you to get from where you are to here. And I would assume that, look, as with all of us, some of those were difficult steps. Some of those were difficult days. They were challenging times, and maybe even for some of you, days where you thought, I'm in a spot that I don't know that I can get out of, but yet here you are. And I reference that because, as you sit here now watching this video for organizational culture, there are probably a lot of steps ahead between today and getting your degree. Maybe even a lot of steps between today and passing the exam for this course. And at some point, hopefully not while you take this course, but maybe, but at some point between now and when you get that degree, there will probably be days where you think, I don't know that I'm going to be able to make it to that end point. I mean, here's the thing. 2.5 years ago, more than that, the people who watched that previous version of this video, they felt the same way. Um, they felt, that the course is hard, it's dense, there's a lot of material, there's a lot of concepts with which I'm unfamiliar. There are 11 chapters, and how can I, work my way through this course? Some of them had almost certainly been unsuccessful on the exam before and were watching this video as part of the multiple attempt process. And absolutely, there was a percentage of those people, probably a significant percentage, who thought, I don't know, I don't know. Seems hard to pass this course, and then eventually seems hard to get this degree. I don't know that I can do it. Here's the thing: they're all gone, right? They all have degrees. I mean, not all of them, but most of them, and by a significant margin. The percentage of students who once they enroll at WGU walk out with diplomas is really pretty high. The percentage of students who once they enroll in this class who walk out passing this class is really pretty high. And the version of you, the person who was sitting in your virtual desk to watch this video when the version of me was talking about Super Bowl 47, they had anxiety about the course. They felt overwhelmed about the course, and eventually they'd feel anxiety and overwhelmed about getting their degrees, and they're all gone. They're all gone. That's why you have a desk. They passed. They've got degrees, and it's not because they're magic. It's just because they just took it all a step at a time. And for this course, a step at a time means you watch the quiz videos, you watch these long form videos if you're inclined. You do the extra multiple choice questions that at the time of this recording you can find in course tips. You go to some live sessions if you have time, and you take the exam, and you don't spend more than a month in the course. You don't take a notebook full of notes. You do some targeted reading. You be smart. You you use some good test-taking skills that I talk about in those quiz videos, and you do the best you can. And then when the next class comes, you take it in the way that's most appropriate for that class. And a step at a time, you work your way through, and you get your degree, and you succeed. My team, unfortunately, did not succeed in Super Bowl 47, and have subsequently completely fallen apart. But that doesn't so much fit the narrative I'm looking to construct here with this discussion of organizational culture. What is organizational culture? Good people. It's a system of shared meaning held by members that distinguishes the organization from other organizations. Those two words, shared meaning, are your keys to remembering organizational culture. Sometimes I'll say something like, I would not memorize a ton of definitions for this course, and I would not. But if there are any definitions you want to maybe crunch on a little bit, it's the definitions of the titles of the chapters. So Chapter 16 is called Organizational Culture. Competency 4 is Organizational Culture. This is the definition of organizational culture. I still wouldn't memorize it because there's not a fill-in-the-blank portion of the exam. It's a multiple choice portion. If you were to get a question that that looks to secure from you your knowledge of the definition of organizational culture, as long as you remember shared meaning, not share, not like what's the meaning of share, not do you believe in life after love is the meaning of share, but instead shared meaning as the key words in the definition of organizational culture. I think you're likely to be in good shape. The chapter begins with the 7 characteristics of an organization's culture. Innovation, risk-taking, attention to detail, outcome orientation, people orientation, team orientation, aggressiveness, stability. Organizations think of a continuum, right? Organizations are also are somewhere on a low to high end for all of these. It's not that organizations either are team oriented or aren't. For most organizations, they have some element of teamwork. Stability is a better example of this. What organization is going to say, yeah, we don't care about stability. We're just flying all over the place. That's unlikely. I mean, unless, you're my football team, which turned over its entire administration, coaching staff, and much of its players in the time between Super Bowl 47 and today. But for most organizations, they would say, yeah, we're relatively stable. We're relatively people-oriented. But there's a continuum. There's a degree where one is either high in team orientation, we got lots of teams here, or low in team orientation, or really just sort of rolling out the idea of teams. So high in aggressiveness, we perceive ourselves as a really aggressive, really a real risk-taking, let's empower our employees, our workers, our management to go out and take chances. Versus, we're more conservative, we're more reserved. We look to hold back on that kind of behavior. So think of these things, on a continuum level. Also, having a good mastery of this language is good when thinking about job interviews. When thinking about the kinds of ways that organizations perceive themselves, I've probably talked about this, in some previous long-form video. I've been on both sides of this. I have applied. Look, in my life, in my life, I loved you more. In my life, there were places I remember. In my life. I have applied for, interviewed for a ton of jobs, just a ton of them. The number of interviews that I have unsuccessfully walked out of, I mean, it's significant. So take this with a grain of salt. But I've been on that side, and I've been on the side where now I'm part of committees that bring people on to WGU, and almost everyone that winds up interviewing for a job is qualified. Almost everyone, and for the kinds of jobs that you're likely to be looking at when you get your degree here, if you're looking to move, careers, move places of employment, everybody who gets to the interview stage is qualified. It's a matter of fit. It's a matter of does the panel believe that you are going to fit inside that organization's culture? So, start to think of your narrative, your personal story, the schooling, the work, the qualities that you have as fitting into these boxes. What are the stories you can tell from your life that demonstrate your team orientation? What are the stories you can tell from your life that demonstrate your attention to detail? What are the stories you can tell from your life that demonstrate the ability that you have to be measured by specific outcome metrics? What are the stories that you can tell from your life that demonstrate your ability to work with people? It's not really enough to just say, well, of course, I'm team oriented. Give me an example. Right? Give me an example. Because the way... If I were going to ask you a question, if you and I were sitting across from each other in an interview, a question I might ask you would be, can you give me a specific example from your work experience that illustrates your ability to work with a team? Right? Or can you give me an example from your work experience that demonstrates how you encountered conflict? If you were management, can you give me an example of a decision you made and you later decided, based on whatever evidence it is that you used, that you had to change a course, and how it is you processed that? So I'm looking for illustrations. I'm looking for anecdotes. And as you prepare for that interview, you want to have those anecdotes. You want to have considered, 4 or 5 stories that illustrate these kinds of broad principles. Don't tell me you're hardworking. Explain to me something that illustrates that. That kind of thing. Here we have the distinctions between dominant cultures and subcultures and strong cultures. Think of pretty much every culture as having a dominant culture. That's a culture that expresses the core values that are shared by a majority of the organization's members. So think of basically every organization has some kind of dominant culture, some kind of shared understanding of what it is they are. WGU has a dominant culture. The Boston Celtics have a dominant culture. Krispy Kreme has a dominant culture. The ACLU has a dominant culture. I can just keep naming organizations, but you see the point that I'm making, that most there's an acceptance throughout the organization that this is who we are. If I say to you, what are we? What do we stand for? What do we stand for? Hey, Taco Bell. Hey, Taco Bell. What do we stand for? We stand for the belief that the word supreme means sour cream, and we will not bend from that reality, that kind of thing. Subcultures are pockets within organizations that reflect sort of a common experience that the individuals in that subculture face. If there are departments within an organization, a particular department might be a subculture. Something I talk about, occasionally is IT in most organizations is very specific, right? If you think about the IT department in your organization, it's probably very specific. It has a very specific way of thinking about itself, of viewing what it does and who it is, that is distinct within the body of the entire organization. So dominant culture is big, subcultures, smaller units. Strong culture, and again, think about a continuum here. Cultures are really not. It's really not true to say they either are strong or weak, even though there's a strong weak discussion in the text. But more of a continuum. A culture can be stronger as opposed to not as strong, and that's the degree to which those core values are intensely held and widely shared. Intensely held means what? It means we feel them deeply. Here we are in the organization. We really believe deeply in what it is we are. There's a deep sense of shared meaning, a deep sense of a collective understanding of what it is it means to work for the ACLU. And widely shared is the degree to which that understanding is spread throughout the organization. That it's not just sort of upper management. That it's everybody. That it's the guy in the cubicle next to you. That it's the guy who works downstairs, and the guy that works upstairs, and the guy in the big office, and the guy in no office at all. The more that they're kind of on board in really believing this collective sense of a purpose. That's the stronger that organization's culture. There's a distinction between having a strong culture and having a formal culture. Formalization means rules. And so if you see formalization on the exam, I want your brain to go to rules. A formalized culture is one where you're really heavily trained to do the thing the organization wants you to do. There's probably a thick policy manual, a thick rule book, a thick handbook, and you should be trained in an understanding of those things within an inch of your life. That if there is a decision to be made, that decision is governed by a rule that has been created by the organization. It's really not up to you to make the decision. It's up to you to execute a decision that's already been made. You are applying a rule that you have been learned, that you've been trained on, that exists, as opposed to your using your own judgment regarding what to do. Why would an organization be formalized? Predictability, consistency, order. The organization saying every person who works here should essentially be the same person. We are giving you a uniform. You're going to do the thing you've been taught to do. Uniforms, incidentally, are kind of good predictors about a degree to which an organization is formalized or not. The more you see people dressed to look the same, the more the organization is saying they view them the same. They are less individuals and more a collective, and what they should do is execute something they've been taught to do, which is a choice made by the organization, as opposed to act as free agents to do what it is they think is best. Think of formalization and strong culture as being different. Not to say that a formalized culture can't also be strong, but think of them as different. Think of the reason why you would have a strong culture is so you don't need all those rules. There's the section in your textbook is called culture versus formalization, right? So that's how the text positions how you should think about culture and formalization as distinct. But there are two roads to a common destination. The idea of a strong culture is that the organization still wants predictability, but it wants predictability that comes out of a different place. It isn't telling you, here's the rule that governs your behavior here. Ideally, because you share an understanding of what the organization is with the people with whom you're shoulder to shoulder, you're going to, when making your own choice, choose the path that is best for the organization. It's not when you're making that choice that you're saying, well, let's see, how was I trained? What rule am I applying? Wait, I was told in this situation that I should execute this strategy. That's not it. If it's a strong culture, what is it is, this is what the organization's about. We are about sour cream. So when in doubt, I'm going to get that sour cream. You see what the point is. It's formalization equals rules. So I go about my job executing the rules I've been taught. Strong culture is not rules. Strong culture is shared meaning, collective understanding. So I go about my job doing what I believe to be best for the organization. And the more I'm embedded in that culture, then the more what I'm doing will be as the organization would want me to do. At 516 in your text is a discussion of the functions of organizational culture, we've been alluding to them. Boundary defining role means there are distinctions between your organization and others. That if you're you, that means you're not something else, right? When you say, I am a member of organization X, by implication, you're saying I'm not a member of organization Y. I'm in whether it's a school or a job or a team that you root for. When you are saying I'm part of this thing, if it's a church, I am part of this thing, you're saying I'm not part of that thing. And that gets to the sense of identity conveyance. If you've got a sweatshirt on, if you have a team jersey, if you're waving a flag, what are you saying? You're saying that there are certain qualities in which I believe. I am part of this. So that tells the world something about you. Facilitates a commitment into something that's larger than individual self-interest. The more you buy into a particular organization, the more you are saying, I'm not just me, right? I mean, look, big picture, this is imagine there's no heaven above us, only sky. This is a imagine no countries, imagine no organizations in kind of a state of nature, right? It's just you. You're born into the world, and here you are alone. Trying to figure out how to get a beef Baja chalupa, and then we move from there. And part of that moving from there is giving up kind of a sense of autonomy, whether that's through relationships you form or through a family structure or through organizations that you voluntarily or otherwise become a part of. You take on this commitment to things that are larger than just your own self-interest. And one of the things that does is it enhances the stability of the social system, and serves as a control mechanism, kind of the next step after that. That, society isn't just billions of individual autonomous free agents just doing whatever it is that strikes them at any given moment. They're people who form these voluntary bonds in ways that make them predictable. Not entirely predictable, but fairly predictable. There's a reason why insurance companies stay in business. There's a reason why demography is a profession. That if you sort of plug into a survey, well, I'm a member of this group, I'm in this group, I'm in this group, I'm in this group. You're pretty predictable. Me too. All of us. We're pretty predictable. The choices we make, they illustrate something about us. If you ever go through voir dire, if you ever go through jury selection, a court is going to be interested in your affiliations because they lead to something about you. They make you predictable in terms of your outlooks, in terms of your attitudes, in terms of your thought patterns and the way that you see the world. And it gives stability to who it is that we are, and provides sort of a force field, a shield around us that leads to a lot of predictable behavior. The world should be significantly more chaotic when you think about it than it is. The person with whom I live occasionally will say, imagine if there are no walls. If, say, the neighbors are out, or the lawn is being mowed next door, or whatever it is. Imagine if there are no walls. How close we are to some dude, across the way. There are walls, and those walls aren't just walls. The walls are the organizations to which we belong. They're the names in your sweatshirts. They're the words in the buildings that you enter. They're the labels to which you attach, and they form bonds that provide a sense of predictability and order to what could be a much more chaotic experience of being alive in a planet with so many billions of people. There's a discussion I want to super quickly get into before we get to can a strong culture be a liability. That's the notion of organizational climate. If on the exam you see the words team spirit, you want to connect that to organizational climate. If you see some sort of scenario where, man, there's a person who's just really going above and beyond. I'm going to come in early. I'm going to stay late. I'm going to work for free on the weekends. I'm in it to win it with this organization. I am really putting myself aside, for the good of this organization. Yay us. Yay us. Organizational climate is probably what's being discussed. Team spirit is the phenomenon that's happening. I don't create your exams, which probably is something with which you are aware at this point in your study. That's one of the distinctions between WGU and a traditional institution. Your course mentors do not create your exams. In most instances, they don't see your exams. I do not have a copy of your exam. However, if I were creating the exam based on this text, something that would jump out at me always are man bites dog concepts. What do I mean by that? I mean that in this case, generally, organizations want strong cultures. If I say true, false, having a strong culture is a good thing, the answer is true. However, there is a circumstance where having a strong culture can be a liability. In a previous chapter, in a previous competency, is a discussion of cohesiveness, and organizations want cohesiveness. However, there's a circumstance where having cohesiveness can be a liability. If it's me and I see those things, I see the thing on cohesiveness, I see the thing on strong culture, it's definitely going on my exam. If I am the professor creating the exam for this course, no question, I'm talking about it in class, I'm interested in it, I'm getting enthusiastic when I talk about it, I'm gesturing a lot, I'm jumping up and down, and it's going on the exam. I don't know if that's happening here. I really don't. But whenever I see ever in a course, ever, the man bites dog stuff, the stuff that runs against what you would expect, that's the stuff that I make an asterisk by to include for possible exam questions. So when can having a strong culture be a liability? It's when the organization needs to change. It's when the organization needs to change. And whether that change means bring in different kinds of people, like diversity, or merge with other organizations. It's all the same idea. It's that sometimes the notion of strong culture becomes so embedded, so institutionalized, that the organization has a meaning that is bigger than anyone who works there. And even if you wanted to change it, you couldn't. Think about what changes for a second. If I say that we have a strong culture, what am I saying? I'm saying I really like who we are, right? Who we are is embedded in the bones of the building. It's not about any particular CEO. It's McDonald's is McDonald's. McDonald's is McDonald's. Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola. I don't care who they hire tomorrow. Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola. and when McDonald's sees its market share erode a little more year after year after year after year after year, and they move through some executives, I mean, what do they say? They say, well, we've got to change the way we do things. But having a strong culture means what? It means we really like who we are. We are who we are. And change means we can't be who we are anymore. That's what the word change means. It means I can't be me anymore. I got to be someone else. Well, it's easy to be someone else if your company started last week. It's easy to be something else if your culture isn't very strong, or it can shift. Okay, new leadership, we shift. Change in the marketplace, we shift. So there's people are going to Chipotle now, or a place like Five Guys. Okay, we shift. McDonald's, man, they can put all the salads on the menu they want. I mean, they're not changing the way they make those quarter pounders. Either you are into that. I'm into McDonald's. Look, because I've been eating there on and off since I was 6, and I know what I'm going to get. I'm going to get this quarter pounder with cheese. Going to get these fries, or I'm done with that. I'm going to go. I'm going to go somewhere else. But having McDonald's become something else, I don't know. Now look, if this video is around 5 years from now, when we're approaching at that point the beginning of the NFL season before Super Bowl 55, my team won't be in that Super Bowl, and McDonald's has had this dramatic resurgence because now it's got tacos with all the sour cream you could want, or whatever it is, then you can call me up and tell me I was wrong. But that's the idea. Strong cultures are liabilities when they need to be dynamic, when they need to move, when they need to be different, when they need to change. There's a discussion about creating and sustaining culture, beginning at 519. Culture for an organization really begins with the founders. What that organization is going to be really starts with whomever starts the organization, and then moves on from there over the generations. If you're watching the video and not just listening, Ben and Jerry are portrayed. They're shown in the video. You know who Ben and Jerry are. Ben and Jerry, right? If I were to ask you their politics, probably you'd say some kind of a progressive left of center individual political leanings. Forget the organization for a second. Individual political leanings, interested in things like equality, interested in things like the rights of workers, interested in that kind of basket of issues. So a couple of years ago, back around Super Bowl 47, one of the movements that had some popularity in the country was the Occupy movement, and that's basically a left of center movement to talk about inequality, to talk about the rights of the mass of Americans whose paychecks and overall wealth have remained kind of static or lessened over the past 30 years, really, while there's been a vast accumulation of wealth at the very upper echelons of the American economy, a vast the percentage of corporate profit that used to go to labor has shrunk consistently over the past 30 years, and the percentage of profit kept by the corporation and that has gone to the highest executives in the corporation has grown dramatically. And so there was a popular movement to protest this. And Ben & Jerry's, as a company now, officially took the pro-Occupy movement stance, right? So this is the organization, a company now much bigger than just two guys in Vermont, eating some chunky monkey. The organization took took a particular political stance, and you can see embedded in the kinds of causes the organization supports, the kinds of ice cream that they put out occasionally, that there's a particular political bent to Ben and Jerry's that is not necessarily had at McDonald's, let's say. So that you can see how the founders of an organization can sow the seeds of what will be the culture of that organization, even when it outgrows the particular inputs of those founders. And then how does culture then get created throughout the organization? The employees are hired who feel the way the founders do. They're socialized into the way of thinking of the founders, the behavior of the founders, the personality of the founders, act as role models. That kind of a selection of employees who fit the kind of role modeling of founder behaviors gets us to a discussion of the socialization process of employees. How it is that new employees are socialized, acculturated into the culture of a particular organization for which they work. There are really 3 steps to the socialization process. I think that these 3 steps are worth memorizing. Maybe not memorizing what happens in these 3 steps, but recognizing pre-arrival and counter-metamorphosis, pre-arrival and counter-metamorphosis, pre-arrival and counter-metamorphosis as the 3 steps of the socialization process might serve you well if a multiple choice question were to look to, get from you some kind of information about it. Pre-arrival comes before the arrival, right? It's the stage that leads just before a new employee, joins an organization. The things you know about the organization before you join the organization, what your understanding is, and the level to which your personality is proactive. They're really good predictors about your level of success in the organization. You should, it's your level of expectation. I'm going to work at Facebook. I'm going to work at Nike. I'm going to work at Ben and Jerry's. As much as you can understand what it is you're walking into, the kind of culture that's going to be expected of you, the more successful you are likely to be. I practiced law in the 1990s. Maybe you know that, maybe you don't. And I was young, right? I passed the bar when I was 24. I went from college right to law school, high school right to college right to law school right to working as a trial lawyer in California. And I can't say that I didn't understand the culture of a law firm because I'd clerked at a law firm in law school. It's what you do in law school is you work at a law firm. But I had, until then, I had virtually no experience in law firms. My parents did not go to college, much less to graduate school. I didn't know any lawyers. I don't believe I'd ever been in a law firm until the first time I interviewed at one when I was in law school. So, it wasn't a matter that it was a family business. It wasn't a matter that I was super comfortable in that world. That was not my life. My life was that I'd gone to school to go into that world. But so intellectually, I understood the nature of what it meant to work at a law firm. But that's different than, okay, now I'm a lawyer and I work at a law firm. And I didn't practice for more than a couple of years. And the law part, I was whatever I was at that stuff. The culture part was the harder part for me. The just being comfortable in that environment, of embracing that role. And people asked me, I left after a couple of years of practice. I left, and I'm only 27, 28. And so people as you can imagine. Why did you do this? And they asked me for years. Why did you do this? And I never had a good answer. I don't know that I still have a good answer, but I really didn't have a good answer. But probably the closest to true is I just didn't feel culturally comfortable. It didn't fit who I was. The kind of person who I was didn't fit in with the kind of place that a law firm is. And not all law firms are the same, but there is a kind of place that a law firm is, and I just did not appreciate the full ramifications of that. So, what does this mean to you? Maybe nothing. But the value of the pre-arrival stage is the more you can have a good sense of the dynamics, the traits of the culture of the organization in which you're going to work, the more likely you are to succeed. The encounter stage is the early stages of employment where you're confronting what the place is with what you thought the place was going to be. Here's the job that I expected. Here's the job that I've got. Right? And you work through those things. Some of the presuppositions you had turn out to either be true or not true to some extent. Some of the things you thought you were going to like, maybe you like or you don't like. Some of the things you thought would be your strengths, turn out maybe to be less so. And you kind of figure it out. Where am I in this new world? And the metamorphosis stage is the change stage. Metamorphosis means change. You adjust to your job, to your whatever your work group is, to whatever your organization is, where either you fit, and here I am, and now I'm a part of this, or you don't. Pre-arrival encounter metamorphosis. Three stages of the socialization of employees into an organization. Culture is transmitted really as often as organizations can through to the workforce in multiple ways. The two most common are probably stories and rituals. Material symbols are things like offices, right? Parking spaces, conference areas. I mean, it's the physical stuff that tells you who we are. Are there cubicles that tells you something about an organization? Does everyone kind of packed into a bunch of cubicles, or are there big offices that are secluded from each other? I had occasion to continue with the sports theme. Back in 2001, I had occasion to visit the ESPN campus. They call it a campus because they're just a bunch of buildings. There used to be fewer buildings back in 2001, although there were a couple. Now it apparently is enormous. But I saw the main area where most of the on-air talent worked. And they had cubicles. Like you see on the commercials. That's the ESPN. So there's, as opposed to all of these on-air anchors having their own offices, which I think I would have expected. That wasn't it. They had cubicles. So that's the nature of the culture of the company. Hey, you're not going to be in your office, sort of apart, away from everyone, even though you're big fancy on-air personality. You're going to sit in a cubicle next to a colleague, and that's that materially that tells you something about who the organization is. The two that you're going to see, I think, on an exam are stories and rituals. Rituals are repetitive sequences of events that reinforce company values, like chants. Company cheers. Let's do the corporate cheer. If you've ever participated in that or seen any of those things, let's all sing the company song. That's we see them maybe more often in religions and in countries that makes sense. Think about the way that the culture of your church is transmitted through rituals. The culture of a country, kind of nationalism. is transmitted through rituals. But if you've ever been part of an organization that has a company chant, that's what I'm talking about. And probably the most common are stories, and the most common type of story is an origin story. Origin stories are super common. Organizations like to talk about how they were founded. They like to talk about, here's the guy in the basement who created, the beefarito, or whatever it is. Whenever I go to a graduation at WGU, on the jumbo screen is the picture of the first WGU graduate. We hear the story of the governors who get together to form this little university, and the 6 employees who were here for 15 years. That kind of thing. Those origin stories. In the beginning, there was the sour cream. Super common way of transmitting to employees understandings of culture. On 525 is a discussion of creating an ethical organizational culture, and I think it's good to be have a sense of familiarity with the kind of organizational culture most likely to shape high ethical standards among its members. And that's this. It's high in risk tolerance. So it tolerates risk among its members if doesn't penalize you for trying to do something. Low to moderate in aggressiveness, meaning they're not just sharks out to sort of eat everything in its path, and focuses on means as well as outcomes. So the way you do something is as important as the bottom line result that you get. Those 3 traits of an organization: high in risk tolerance, low to moderate in aggressiveness, focusing on means as well as outcomes. Those 3 traits are the traits most likely to shape an ethical organizational culture. How can you create a positive organizational culture? 3 ways, really. There are 3 kinds of cultures that we think of, 3 kinds of traits that we think of as creating a positive organizational culture. One that builds on employee strengths. So it looks to see what it is you do well, and do more of that. Tell me what it is you do well, and can we do more of that? Can we do that in different ways? Can we do that in different venues? But what is it that you're good at? What is it that you're good at? Now let's figure out a way to make that work with our organization. Rewards more than punishes. Less of you're docked in pay, you lose hours, you're demoted, you're fired, and more of you're promoted. Here's your bonus. Here's how you succeed. Good things accrue to you when you do well. And emphasizes vitality and growth. It's we're a company that's moving. We're a company that's dynamic. We're a company that promotes from within. We're a company that gets bigger. We're an organization that isn't just offering you a job, but offering you a career, offering you a life. It's not just a paycheck. It's a life. It is a place where you individually can grow, and your growth is good for the growth of the organization. Builds on employee strengths, reward more than punish, and emphasizing vitality and growth. The last concept in the chapter is workplace spirituality. If you get a question on spirituality, the thing to remember is it's not about religion. It's about this notion that all of us have an inner life that can be nourished by meaningful work, and the organization looks to tap in to the things you have inside you that are most important and connect them to your job. The people who were here listening to me 2.5 years ago talk with much hope about Super Bowl 47. By and large, they've passed this course. By and large, they've gotten degrees and have moved on to the next phases of their lives. Hopefully a phase where they're successfully able to talk about organizational culture at a job interview and connect it to their own lives in a way that serve them well. And there's no reason why that's not you. There's no reason why if I'm doing this again 2.5 years from now, and talking about, back before in the fall of 2015, before the season that would lead to Super Bowl 50, when the Packers beat the Colts. Spoiler alert. Back before that. Before that season started, I was talking to students who were just like you, and talking to them about the anxieties that their predecessors felt. You now are going to be you now are going to be 2.5 years from now, who the people 2.5 years ago are to you right now, or something that makes more sense than that. But look, you know what I'm saying, people. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to pass this course. You're going to go past the next course step by step. You're going to get your degree. Just do a little bit of work every day. Watch the quiz videos, particularly the ones with the 4 critical chapters, 9, 10, 12, 16. Do the extra multiple choice questions. Do a little bit of work after that. Take a little bit of look at the other quiz videos. Do a little bit of reading. Maybe go to a live session if you're available. Don't be in the course more than a month. It's not worth it. And take a shot at your exam. And you know what? If you're not successful the first time, work with a course mentor, do some resources, take it a couple of weeks later. Really, it's going to be fine. You really are walking in the footsteps of those who have already passed this course. And one day, others will walk in your footsteps too. That's how it works. That's the culture of WGU. I thank you very much for your time. My name's Jim. Folks, go get it.